The heavy locomotive pulls a line of empty coal cars. The vibration shakes the frozen ground. Steel groans under the weight of state expectations. Rust gathers on the switches of the secondary lines. No maintenance crew arrives to clear the debris. The silence of the yard signals a deeper paralysis. Inside the station office, a clerk records the daily tallies. The ledger paper is thin and yellowed at the edges. Numbers represent a reality that no longer exists on the tracks. Concrete pillars in the warehouse show deep structural cracks. Repair budgets were diverted to meet the monthly production totals. Physical integrity is sacrificed for the sake of the report. A line of trucks waits at the loading bay doors. The engines are cold, and the drivers have moved inside. Capital stands idle while the bureaucratic clock continues to turn. Telegraph wires sag between leaning poles along the horizon. Communication is reduced to the repetition of approved figures. The flow of information is as brittle as the copper. The director stares at a map of the rail network. Red pins indicate shipments that have not moved in weeks. He signs the authorization for the next empty transport. Steam vents violently from a burst pipe in the basement. The pressure has exceeded the capacity of the aging iron. Water pools around the foundations of the Central Planning Bureau. Bureau. A stack of rubber tires rots in an open courtyard. They were delivered to the wrong facility 3 years ago. The paperwork to move them remains buried in the Capitol. Workers congregate in the canteen during the morning break. The soup is thin, and the room is barely heated. Conversation is limited to the logistics of the next shift. An abandoned crane looms over the unfinished shipyard. Construction stopped when the steel allocation was redirected south. It remains a monument to a plan that was revised. Rows of filing cabinets fill the corridors of the ministry. Each drawer contains the history of a deferred repair. The weight of the paper threatens the floor below. The gears of the drawbridge are seized by frost. Ships wait in the harbor for a signal that never comes. The mechanism of transit has reached its absolute limit. Coal dust covers the window of the station master. He no longer looks out at the passing trains. His focus is the telephone that rarely rings with good news. A coupling link snaps under the strain of the climb. The rear cars begin a slow descent back down the grade. The failure of the part was noted in June. The train cars sit at the bottom of the ravine. No salvage operation is planned for the current fiscal quarter. They are simply removed from the active registry. Fuel oil leaks from a drum in the supply yard. The black stain spreads across the white frozen ground. It is a slow loss that no one has authority to stop. The main transformer at the power plant hums loudly. Oil stains indicate a leak in the cooling system. The technicians wait for the official request for parts. A bureaucrat adjusts his glasses under the harsh light. He is checking the quotas for the timber harvest. The forest has already been cleared beyond the limit. Stumps stretch to the horizon in the logging sector. No seedlings have been planted to replace the fallen trees. The system consumes its own future to satisfy the present. An empty passenger car sits on a siding. The velvet seats are thick with dust and mold. The schedule says this train is currently in transit. A factory chimney collapses during a minor earthquake. The mortar had turned to sand decades ago. Production continues in the rubble of the north wing. A mountain of iron ore sits by the docks. The cargo ship that was supposed to carry it never arrived. The ore is slowly sinking into the soft mud. A map in the dispatcher's office is covered in notes. Every route is marked with a symbol for delay. The inertia of the system has become its primary output. The switchyard is empty at the peak hour. The locomotives are all in the repair bays. The quiet is a symptom of total mechanical exhaustion. A worker hammers a wedge into a loose rail. It is a temporary fix that has been repeated weekly. He does not expect the replacement steel to arrive. Boxes of precision instruments sit in the rain. The roof of the loading dock has collapsed. The machines inside will be ruined before they are used. An old woman sweeps the floor of the empty station. The grand marble stairs are chipped and stained. The structure remains standing through the habit of cleaning. A massive press in the forge strikes a cold ingot. The shockwave shatters the windows of the factory floor. The heating element failed, but the quota was due. The factory manager sits in his dark office. He has run out of excuses for the Central Committee. The final report is sitting on his desk unsigned. Sunlight hits the dust on a row of medals. They were awarded for efficiency in the previous decade. The metal is tarnished and the ribbons are frayed. A train of empty grain hoppers sits in a field. The harvest was lost to rot weeks ago. The cars must still reach their destination to close the file. Continued observation of these systems reveals the patterns of endurance. The record of this era persists in the archives. Attention remains fixed on the mechanics of the past. The bridge over the frozen river is closed. Inspectors found the concrete had turned to powder. Traffic is rerouted through a mountain pass that is blocked. A worker in a thick coat checks a pressure gauge. The needle is stuck at the maximum value. He taps the glass, but the reading does not change. A massive flywheel slows down and finally stops. The belt that drives it has finally snapped. The rhythm of the shop floor is suddenly broken. Machines stand idle under plastic covers. The shift bell rings, but no one moves to the benches. The inventory of raw materials has been exhausted. A light flickers in the window of the central bank. Ledgers are being moved into the furnace room. The evidence of the deficit is being converted to heat. Empty shelves line the walls of the local grocery. The distribution system has prioritized the industrial centers. The village waits for a delivery that is not scheduled. A group of engineers huddle over a technical drawing. They are erasing the specifications for the new turbine. The old model will be produced for another 5 years. The prototype engine is covered in a thick layer of oil. It has not been started since the testing phase failed. The project remains officially active in the budget. A typewriter clacks in an otherwise silent office. The ribbon is faint, and the letters are barely legible. The final warning is being typed on the last sheet. A water main bursts under the city square. The pressure of the decay has finally reached the surface. Workers scramble to shut a valve that is rusted shut. The mud from the flood dries on the steps of the hall. No one has come to wash the silt away. The city has accepted the layer of grime as permanent. A man walks along the empty tracks toward the horizon. He is carrying a toolbox that contains only 3 wrenches. He is the only maintenance worker for the entire sector. The sun sets behind the cooling towers of the plant. Only one tower is emitting a thin trail of steam. The others have been cold for several months. A stack of newspapers is tied with rough twine. The headlines speak of record-breaking steel production. They will be used to wrap boots against the cold. The iron gates of the central yard are locked. A chain has been welded across the main entrance. No shipments have entered or left since the winter began. A single red light glows at the end of the line. The power grid is failing in the outer districts. The darkness is moving inward toward the capital. The system continues to function on the ledger pages. Reports are filed and stamps are applied to the ink. The physical world has already stopped moving.